I'm not gonna lie, the fact that I got Star Trek Enterprise references in this episode makes me very, very happy. Yeah, it should be clearly self-evident. I'm a huge Star Trek Enterprise fan, so the very fact that we got references to it in this episode, I'm over the moon. This has been a great day for me as a Trekkie, just like me specifically. Yes, it is time for my review of the 5th episode of Star Trek Lower Decks, 1st season, Cupid's Errant Arrow. That is a tongue twister. I am glad that I got it right on the first try. Totally was the first try. I didn't have to do multiple takes of that. And as always, I'm going to be doing my spoiler-free review up front and then jumping into my spoiler-filled thoughts. First things first, I gotta say, this might be my favorite episode of the season so far. I kind of had a lackluster response to last episode, though I know a lot of other people liked it, but this one felt like it was made for me. This was a perfect encapsulation of what I thought Lower Decks was going to be. There is an A, B, and a C plot, but without sort of delving too much into the spoilers of it, it's a reverse of what you would think a Next Generation plot is. The sort of bridge crew, big, epic, over-the-top things happening, big diplomacy stuff, explosions, things like that, was the C plot of the episode. And then the B and the A plots were fairly tangential or almost had nothing to do with them, really, at all. And so I just really liked that this episode just felt like a perfect encapsulation of a Next Generation episode just flipped on its head. And while we've gotten hints of that and like little bits of that throughout the other episodes of Lower Decks, I think this one did it so structurally perfectly. Not only that, there are some incredible Easter eggs in this episode. Again, I don't want to spoil for anybody, but some of the Easter eggs and like Trekkie moments in this episode are probably the best this series has had to offer so far. Not just the, Star Trek Enterprise ones for me in particular, but there are just so many Easter eggs littered throughout this episode, and one in particular that I know a lot of fans were probably freaking out, if you're like me, it was just absolutely fantastic. We also got some really good character work for our characters, more character development in a very roundabout way that was actually kind of subtle and layered, yet over the top and funny at the same time. Again, I can't really delve too much into spoilers, but I liked how it subtly showed us character growth and hinted towards character development without it being over the top and just beat us on the head with it. It was just so well structured. And then we also got every single character involved in this episode's plot. All 4 of the main characters, Mariner, Boimler, Tendi, and Rutherford, all got something to do this episode, and they were all fun and involved in different ways. And I absolutely am loving that. I think the only negative that I could possibly say, and it's, again, not really a negative with the episode, just something I would like to see with the series overall, is, again, we kind of got our characters grouped as Mariner and Boimler doing something, and then Rutherford and Tendi doing something together. And that's basically been the general pairings for those characters. Like, Mariner and Boimler and Rutherford and Tendi have kind of been paired off with each other for the most part in most episodes. And while that's great, I do enjoy their dynamic, I would like to see that switched up a bit. Like, what would Rutherford and Boimler be doing? Or Mariner and Tendi? Or, Mariner and Rutherford be doing? I would just like a little bit of shaking it up. And again, that's not necessarily a problem with this episode in particular. I think this episode was just top-notch great. That's just something I would like to see a little bit more of going forward into Lower Decks. And we have 5 more episodes this season and a whole season 2 for that to possibly happen. So there's certainly time and chance for that. It's just something I would like to see. But overall, favorite episode of the season so far. I really just absolutely adored this episode of Star Trek Lower Decks. That's it for my spoiler-free review thoughts on this episode. So if you haven't seen the episode, or So if you haven't seen the episode yet, I would stop right here or let the video keep watching. But if you have seen the episode or you don't care about spoilers, we're going to jump right into spoilers right now. So yes, like I said, I loved how this episode had a C, B, and A plot, sort of a reverse of Star Trek The Next Generation. The C plot basically followed the bridge crew of the Cerritos, and I absolutely adored that plot. It was very much making fun of that, like, send-up of, like, the over-the-top diplomatic nature of so many of the Next Generation and just Star Trek in general's missions, where they're always trying to have to deal with these, like, complicated, diplomatic relationships between, like, a completely alien civilization. They always seem like super high stakes and over the top, and everyone's like, you're gonna have blood on your hands, and it's always this big ethical problem. And it was just sort of these big hyperbolic statements being said, like having to deal with intricacies of religion and things. It was just all thrown into a blender at once, and just the captain just having to try and deal with it and negotiating it was just absolutely hysterical. It was just all these like very stock rote situations just all thrown in a blender at once and just having to deal with it. I just love the Starfleet crew's like, yeah, we're gonna do this. We can figure out impossible situations. We can solve all this diplomatic stuff. It was just it was very Starfleet, Star Trekian, but just also sending it up, which is, I think, absolutely wonderful. I also loved how that plot, which was revolving around blowing up the moon of this planet and how it was going to mess with like a religion of one group and was going to mess with like the farming of another group, stuff like that. I did like how the one that they couldn't solve was this like guy who's like, if you blow up the moon, you're gonna destroy my family's property and all that stuff. And they were just trying to figure it out. And I just loved that the twist at the end was that this guy was just essentially a rich dude, and the captain was just like, blow up the damn moon. And she just straight up just blows it up because, like, you know what? Your privilege, you rich asshole. We're going through all this trouble just for two people? No, screw you. I thought that was very funny, very Trekkie in sort of its ethos and politics as well, if we want to go there. So just fantastic job on all fronts there. I thought that was absolutely hysterical. The B plot of this episode, I'm going to kind of go through, involves Rutherford and Tendi going over to the USS Vancouver, I believe is the name of the ship, which was a Parliament class ship. I think I'm naming that right. Beautiful looking ship, top of the line Star Trek ship. I'm sure the ship people in Star Trek are going to love it. But I just love that Tendi and Rutherford were just nerding out about how cool this ship was and just going over the top and just absolutely just nerding out about like the T-88s, these little scanner things, and they were trying to outdo each other. Basically, they were said if they did a really good job on the ship, they will get to keep these like cool little nerdy tricorder type things that they are scanning stuff with, and they're just trying to outdo each other. It was just so fun and nerdy and low stakes, and it was just fun to like have this like low stakes sort of thing going on with this big like literal diplomatic explosion-y stuff was going on elsewhere in the episode, and having this be seen as more important was just wonderful. And then at the end of the episode, we get this bit where it turns out the guy wants to transfer them to this new ship. I love that sort of like situation that creates for Rutherford and Tendi. They're wondering like, we feel needed here on the Cerritos. Like the Cerritos is falling down and falling apart, and we keep it together. And again, that's in a very subtle way, a very Star Trekian ethos too, that they want to help and do its best for everybody. That was actually a very sweet thing to learn, and so they decide they don't want to be transferred. And again, like I said, we learned that this guy, the Ron Docent, which is a hilarious name for this over-the-top guy, wants to transfer himself to their ship so that he can have that lifestyle, this sort of more laid-back lifestyle, because being on this top-of-line ship is just so epic all the time. Crazy stuff is always happening. The next-generation type level stuff is just always happening on the ship, and it's too much for him. Again, his name is literally Ron Docent. He wants to kind of have like a more docent lifestyle. So that was just funny. I loved him like shooting them and just trying to get them to transfer and do those things, and then they having to blackmail him, and they blackmail him to get dry quarters, essentially. It's just, again, so wonderfully low stakes, but I like that it's like played as this like big high stakes thing, but there's literally like a moon exploding elsewhere in the episode, but this is played more importantly. Again, just that wonderful like lower decks or ethos, like showing off structurally how powerful and structurally done this episode was. And then we have the A plot of the episode, which is Mariner and Boimler kind of going back and forth, and Mariner learning that Boimler has a girlfriend who absolutely loves him, and she's just absolutely fantastic, and she's sort of shocked that Boimler is able to have a girlfriend this good, and Boimler being okay with that, but being insecure when he learns that this other guy is kind of, maybe he thinks he's kind of jealous of this other guy that his girlfriend may be into. And it was just, again, there's so many references chock full in here, and it has the reference of the episode. One of the things we learn about Mariner is it's not that she doesn't believe that Boimler couldn't get this girl, which I honestly would feel like it would be a tad insulting. Certainly you understand that's like a comedic trope, but I like that they back it up with like Mariner have this traumatic moment in her past, which took place at Deep Space Nine, not on Deep Space Nine, but on a ship that was docked there. And we got Deep Space Nine seen in this episode, which Holy crap, that's awesome. I mean, we didn't get to be on it, but it was just a really fun and cool reference to just know that we were there. We got to see the sort of DS9 First Contact Insurrection sort of Dominion War era uniforms by Mariner there, and her hair just looked awesome too in that sequence as well. But she just had this over-the-top situation where like this alien-esque thing just sort of came out of this guy and killed people, and it actually added to her trauma and made it believable that she cares for Boimler. And that's the subtle thing I was talking about that I really liked as the character development, because as we learn this episode, she's going through all these Easter eggs trying to figure out what Boimler's girlfriend may be. Like, again, there's a button, she thinks she may be a Suliban, which is an Enterprise reference, which made me very happy. We also got a reference to Trip Tucker earlier, which also made me very happy to acknowledge that Enterprise is a thing that exists. So I just kind of adored that. But, you know, she's going through all these Easter eggs, and there's a lot of fun and stuff going on there. And I just also loved Boimler trying to just like play things up. I like he's Bradford is his real name, or he like gets this costume full of like all the different cool people throughout history, and it just like this weird amalgam uniform, but actually worked. Like his girlfriend's like, oh, you came in all sexy. Just a very funny joke. And it kind of goes the way you expect it would. But again, I like the subtle reference because at the end of the episode, when Mariner and Brad Boimler's girlfriend are fighting, the girlfriend was feeling the same way about Mariner, that she was incredibly jealous of Mariner because she thought that she might be a hologram or a parasite or things like that. And the fact that she felt the same way subtly hints that Mariner might have feelings for Boimler. And I just like that sort of subtly built that like little sort of thread in there that maybe they won't get into a relationship, but there's definitely hints of that. But it also shows that Mariner does care for Boimler. Yeah, she kind of like has this sort of like infantilism of him, like, oh, you're such a cute little, little guy, which can be a little bit insulting. I can totally understand that. But it's also like she does legitimately care for him, at the very least as a friend, but little hints that there might be a little bit of romantic feelings budding there, which I really like. It's subtle. It's not beat you over the head with the fact that, oh, I have feelings for you, but just slowly layering that character development and building out their relationship as friends. Just well done and just absolutely hysterical. And then I just love the twist at the end that Brad had a parasite that was causing him to be attracted to the girlfriend, and the girlfriend just breaks up with him for the parasite, essentially. And the parasite just this wonderfully creepy thing like lava. It's just creepy and funny, and just totally a nerdy thing to do. I love the fact she calls it like, no, I wasn't interested in you and your pheromones, but I am very interested in this parasite because it's just an interesting thing to be interested in. How many times can I say interesting? I don't know. This episode just did everything. It was like a perfect Trek episode in reverse, if that makes sense. Like structurally just reversed, but in every way just everything that, Trek could encapsulate. It still encapsulates the spirit of Trek in every way, like people being nerdy and hyper competent, wanting to care for others, saying screw rich people, which is also great. Just it was everything. It had everything, including Star Trek Enterprise references. And Deep Space Nine. Like literally, what more can a girl ask for? Between this and the fact that we're getting transgender characters in Star Trek Discovery Season 3, which was announced today, check out my video on it. Between that news today and this episode, I'm so happy to be a Trek fan. I am just overjoyed with glee at this episode. It was literally the best thing. The only thing I could have liked more is if we even got more nitty gritty with the politics, because that's my bread and butter. I love just overindulging on sci-fi politics, but you can't have everything in a 30-minute episode. I gotta give up something. So other than that, this was great. Absolutely top-notch Star Trek Lower Decks episode, in my opinion. I'm just really enjoying this series. My roommate and I are just over the moon about it. We were just gushing about how much we love this show while we were watching it. So, ending on that note, what did you think of this episode? Did you like Cupid's errant arrow? I did actually get it the first time that time. Did you like it? Let me know down in the comments below. Don't forget, if you want to get more Lower Decks discussions and reviews and other Star Trek discussions and news and discussions of other shows and political and social issues within those shows. You can find all that right here on this channel, so don't forget to subscribe. I also do 2 podcasts, including Star Trek Behind the Lines, which is a Star Trek RPG comedy podcast, and also What the Frel, which I do with Council of Geeks, another LGBTQ geek YouTuber, where we rewatch Farscape. It's a ton of fun. So check out both of those podcasts. And also I have a Patreon, which really helps pay the bills. It really, really does help me. And given some stuff that might be happening in my life coming up, I'm going to be needing that more than ever. So if you can help me on Patreon, it's really appreciated, but by no means necessary. And as always, regardless of whether you help on Patreon, subscribe, listen to the podcast, all that stuff, I am just glad that you stopped by and hope that you, as always, live long and prosper and go watch Star Trek Enterprise. Thank you so much to all of my patrons, especially Ashley Allen Bokikio, Miranda Janelle, Eli Berg-Moss, Ashlyn Solstice, Christina Dalliance, Greg Gillum, Stephen Clinard, Munir Amlani, Boyd and Mary Beth Earl, Wayne Twitchell, Ish the Mad, Buttoneer, Randy Thompson, Jemshin, Lorena Mesa, Mari Neckar, Wellington Marcus, John Steele, Michael Beam, William Stewart, Gavin Robinson, Jason Knott, Maeve, Subraxis, Tonya Trummer, Wen Dizzle-Bizzle, Gretchen Badger, Dante St. James, Polly Mina, Piston Twisted Garage, and Bree Beecher. Thank you all so much for your continued support.